Today I will be informing you about the interview with Miss Betty J. Fleming Morgan, who was a part of the Women's Marine Force during World War II. The setting takes place during World War II, which happened during the years of 1939 to 1945. World War II happened because of issues that were still unresolved from the previous World War, or the First World War, World War One. The issues were that political and economic instability was prevalent in Germany, and that resentment, or Hitler's resentment over the Treaty of Versailles. Hitler had this ideology that helped give him an idea that Aryan expansion in Germany was heading for decline, so he wanted to increase this. And the thought was that if he went to war to destroy other races and such, then the Aryan race would be expanded to his liking and would not decline like he was told. He also thought that during this time would be the best time to side with the Soviet Union in order to continue his conquest. And this all started when Hitler first acquired power in Germany along with his Nazi party, and therefore he rearmed the nation in Germany and then signed treaties with both Italy and Japan to help further his conquest. Hitler invaded Poland in September 1939, which drove Great Britain and France to declare war on Germany. Roughly, I think 85 million people were killed in World War II, which was about 3% of the world population in 1940. Miss Betty J. Morgan was born in Idaho, but considers her home state to be Arizona. She was born in the year 1923. Her maiden name is Fleming. She grew up in a town called Pocatello, Idaho, and she considered her town to be very small and somewhat boring, which is pictured to the right. Miss Fleming joined the Marines at 21 years old, which was a required age to join the Marines. You could join the Army back then at 18, apparently. By the time she joined, both of her parents were deceased. She then went to Utah and went to the city, Salt Lake, in order to enlist for the Marines. Betty had to have permission from her previous place of employment, which was a telephone company, in order to release her for her to be able to serve in the Marines. What triggered her resentment was when she heard about the bombing of Pearl Harbor and wanted to act and help. And she even held resentment for that situation until even after the war ended. Betty was a part of the Women's Marines, and she was a part of the 33rd Battalion. She also served in both Camp Lejeune and Quantico, Virginia. Her rank was corporal, and the dates of service that she actually served were from 1944 to 1946. During Betty's time in the Marines, her boot camp was located in Camp Lejeune, North Carolina. During boot camp, she earned a bulldog, which was in place for the private rank and the actual private stripe that you would get on the uniform. And for the women that were in the Marines, they wore either skirts or pants, and they could choose either or. They did not have guns in the Marines, and she said that their only defense weapon were sticks, especially when she hiked, to help just keep her protected. She then went to quartermaster school after boot camp, but she was a bookkeeper during boot camp and, of course, after. From there, she was assigned to Quantico, Virginia. It was her choice. She drove a Jeep every day as part of her job to help deliver coffee, deliver resources. She was also a quartermaster clerk. Betty said for fun, while being in the Marines, her and her fellow soldiers would go to Slop Shoot, which was a local bar, to drink and dance polka. She then also learned how to swim during her stay in Quantico, Virginia, and she did not like KP duty. Betty talks about how much fun and adventures that she went on during her time in the Marines. When the war was over, she got separated from the friends that she met in the Marines. She only had maybe one or two that she mentioned. She did not decide to go to home, but then she decided to go to California to see an aunt that she had not seen for a while. In California, she met Roberto, who got discharged at the same time that Betty did, but he got discharged from the Army himself. They have been married for 60 plus years, and they had their 60th anniversary in a hospital over a gastritis infection. And on the hospital door, apparently the nurses had a honeymoon suite. She also mentioned that they even had to wear their Marine uniforms on weekends even after they were discharged. Now, in the more recent years, apparently Marines can wear civvies or regular civilian clothes on the weekends if they choose. They are not required to wear the uniform on the weekends like they did in the past. Miss Betty really enjoyed her time in the Marines. She was able to become free in her mind from the time she lived in Idaho. She now has friends, or with those friends, a familial connection, because she didn't when she first joined because of her parents passing. She joined eventually to make it her goal to make it to Hawaii after, and she recently just moved to Hawaii. She didn't participate in war, so that did not affect her in that way. So she had a positive view of the military. Miss Betty says that she wouldn't wish it upon her children or her grandchildren. She does not want them to engage in the military like she did. Even though she had a job and she wasn't necessarily in combat. She did feel fulfilled after being in the military. She said she would not take it back. She had so many adventures in her time during the Marines. Her time in the Marines led to when she went to California to go see her aunt, and that's where she met her significant other, Roberto, and got married and are still married for 60 years and have 2 kids, and then they have grandchildren. And it seems like she lived an amazing life. She seems content with how her service went. She said that the Marines were heavily protective of their women that were in the Marines versus maybe some other of the other military groups. A second thing is that when Miss Betty had heard about the bombing on Pearl Harbor, she was very angry and stayed angry and held very much resentment for that situation over the years. That changes how you view people, and she mentioned that it changed how she views a certain group of citizens, which it shouldn't. But that's what she said because it just angered her so much. It changed her perspective and of the world. And she's definitely heavy on wanting to protect your country and fighting for your country and being so committed to your country. Lastly, Miss Betty gained all 3 benefits from the military that are identified in the book War Contemporary Perspectives on Armed Conflicts Around the World by Dr. Cameron D. Lippard, which include that the first benefit is that the military leads to socioeconomic advantages, which she did gain. She had a better job within the Marines and a better pay than she would have if she had stayed in Idaho. Also, that it was a turning point for her life because she felt confined to a small city in Idaho, and then she got to transfer to Camp Lejeune and then go to Quantico and then eventually Hawaii. And lastly, the last benefit is that she gained a better lifestyle from the military. She became content with her life.